Welcome to Hardbacks and Hot Flashes. I'm Ro, a 40-something woman trying to read her way through midlife and all the madness that comes along with it. Strap in for some in-depth and hilarious observations from a woman who is reaching her peak feminine rage era. We'll talk all about things books, genres, tropes, and those smutty scenes that bring on the other kind of hot flashes. This week, we are chatting with Amanda Connolly, the debut author of The Lure of Wolves and Whispers, releasing on the 7th of July. An epic fantasy that follows Maeve, a young woman who makes a deadly bargain. Maeve strikes a deal to trade a life for a life. She wants the magic to save her sister, and in return, she will do whatever the rebels want. Unfortunately, when the contract is called in, Maeve is thrust into the bride trials, trials that determine who will marry the prince. But there can only be one bride left standing. However, what Maeve is truly unprepared for is the war that she didn't realise is brewing just underneath. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It is so good to finally meet you. I've been talking with your publicist for a while now, so this is amazing.
Oh, she's so lovely. I'm such a huge fan of hers.
Yeah, she is. She's really lovely. She was so understanding when I was like, I'm so sorry the podcast has changed a little bit.
No worries at all. This is gonna be so much fun.
It will be. It'll be heaps of fun. Okay, so first question I've got for you is what inspired this amazing story that you came up with?
Oh, thank you so much. This story, it came from so many different areas of inspiration. I've been a lifelong fantasy reader. It's been my favorite thing to read ever since I was a little kid. And so I knew when I was trying to get published for years and years before I ever wrote The Lure of Wolves and Whispers that I was going to be writing a fantasy book. That's just where my heart is. It's what I love to read. It's what I love to write. But when it came to really writing this particular book, I had been writing for about 13 or 12 years at that point, 13 years now. And I'd written 5 books that hadn't gone anywhere. None of them had sold. They just had not. They lived forever in a drawer. But I was really getting to the end of my energy and wondering, do I have it in me to keep going after this really wild dream? Maybe this just isn't for me. And I finally had a really hard year. 2023 for me was the hardest year of my life. I had burned out professionally so brutally. It was horrible. And then I had some back to back, just random injuries that were really devastating. I had 2 back to back bereavements, all this in the span of 6 months. And I
Wow.
hadn't written a word of fiction in a year by the time I sat down in January 2024 to start writing this book, the book that would become The Lure of Wolves and Whispers. And I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And my husband said to me, I've been watching you strive for this for years. You're always thinking about what is going to be marketable and sellable. Just write a book that you know you're going to have fun with. You need to get back into writing. It's weighing on you not doing it. I know that you love it. Just sit down and write what you love. And for me, that literally was all of my favorite things packed into one book. It was enemies to lovers. It was
It
Irish folklore
was.
inspiration and mythology. I'm a dual citizen. It was looking at all the fast, propulsive pacing that I love so much as a reader. And all of it just really poured out. I heard a couple of key songs that just brought the scenes and the character's voice exploding into my head. I'm hugely motivated by music when I'm writing. And everything just went from there. It came out of me in 2.5 months. It was the fastest I've ever written anything.
Two and a
And
half
we sold it
months.
2.5 months. And I got
Wow.
my agent within weeks after that. And then we sold it within, I think it was four or 5 months, 5 months, I think. So yeah, it was incredibly fast. January to kind of mid and March. I was writing it in 2024, got my agent in April, and then we sold it in September with the first offer in, I think it was 24 or 48 hours. It was incredibly quick.
Oh my God.
And it's been just a wild roller coaster ever since. It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. I cannot believe you wrote that in 2.5 months. Obviously, I read it for this interview and I would not know. That's amazing. That is really
Thank you.
amazing.
It's been through a lot of edits as well. It's a long process. We sold it 2 years ago, but there's nothing has really changed that was major. The plot points, the character arcs, all of the really core fundamental things that are in there have been there since the beginning. And there have been
Yeah.
bits that have sharpened and have been expanded on for character growth and depth and things like that. But the world, the magic, all of the everything that I love most and that I hope readers are going to love most about the book has been there since that kind of lightning in a bottle moment of just pure inspiration.
Wow. You were saying that you have dual citizenship for Ireland. And there was a lot of folklore in this. And I did, while I was reading it, I did some Googling. I'm like, okay, how do you pronounce that? I did get Aoife though. I knew that one.
Oh, good. I
I
did.
knew
It's so
that
funny. I
one.
have. It's so funny. I have the loveliest audiobook narrator. She's a Canadian and she's doing the audiobook version. And I literally sent her audio translations. I recorded just all of the words and was like looking everything up to try and make it as accurate as possible. There's obviously a huge amount of inspiration from the actual Irish language in this book. There's a couple of points where the pronunciation is very deliberately different than how you would
Yeah.
say it in Irish, just because I wanted to differentiate from something that exists or that is real in our world and keep that separate for listeners who might be familiar with it in the real world. But everything has been so just kind of organically coming together and so much fun. And she's been so wonderful. And the whole team, honestly, working on this has been just an absolute dream.
That's fantastic that you're getting the audio. I didn't know that. That's awesome. So is the Irish law close to your heart? Because there's a lot of Irish law in this.
It is. It's very heavily influenced by a lot of different elements of Irish lore, Irish history as well. There's a
Mm.
lot of elements of that. I studied journalism in university, and I was also a history minor, particularly around medieval and pre-medieval time periods. And I've always just felt a really deep fascination for that time period, especially that time period through Ireland, through the British Isles as well. And there was a real kind of sense of an anchor time in my head as I was writing this and wanting to know what the textures, what the feeling of the world was going to be like. I wanted it to feel very gritty, almost
I
kind
was
of,
that
if
was the
not,
word
if
I was
not
thinking
Viking.
of.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. People are always saying, "Oh, you wrote a gothic book," and I didn't set out to write a gothic book. I
No.
set out to write a story that was very, again, textured, gritty, almost. If you're looking for reference points in history, it's a bit closer to Viking and early medieval than it is to anything else. But yeah, there's a huge amount of inspiration from Irish folklore and history. I'm a dual citizen. I'm very lucky to have had a strong connection with my roots, with my family, who still could tell us stories about our family members and what we've been through in immigrating to Canada and everything through some very difficult times. And it's just, I grew up with that deep love for that aspect of my family and our history. And it sparked a huge amount of creativity even when I was a child.
It comes through in the book. It really does. I've got family friends who are also Irish, and a lot of that feeling and depth comes through when you're reading. So
Oh, thank
you
you so
nailed that part.
much.
But yeah, I would have said gritty. It's very raw and gritty, I
Mm,
feel.
hmm.
Very raw.
Deliberately
And
so, very much.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
In saying that, the in depth world builder magic system that you created was so very unique. So very
Thank you.
unique.
Thank you so much.
Was the inspiration also from the Irish folklore, or was it something that you came up with yourself?
And I think there's a couple of parts to that. I think a lot of readers who have read the book will notice that there is a lot about magic in this book that we don't get answers to right away. And magic is a very kind of light touch in
Yes.
this in book one of this series, and deliberately so. And I won't give any spoilers, but I will say that's been a very careful consideration on my part because we're so deeply in Maeve's head and we only know what she
Yes.
knows, and she knows very little. And for me, I really wanted to, in crafting the magic system here, there's a lot of kind of reference points and kind of analogies and metaphors I was working through as I was writing this. And a lot of it has to do both with reckoning with the legends around St. Patrick in particular, and this idea that he drove the snakes out of Ireland. There never were snakes in Ireland,
They never
right? So
were.
where
I
does
did get
that,
that reference though. That was
yeah, where does that come from, right? When you're looking at like the metaphors and the kind of stories that we tell ourselves about our histories, like what is there a metaphor? Is there an analogy there? Is it meant to draw allusions to something else? And to me, I was always wondering about the idea of what if the person who's doing the banishing of these things that you're told is bad or wrong isn't actually good, right?
Mm.
What if you flip that story on its head a little bit and have magic be something that is actually the power of the people? It's the right of the people, the inherent rights and dignity of yourself to choose what's right for you, for your family, for your body, for all of this. And you're not allowed to make those decisions. And what do you do in a world where that power, that dignity is being taken from you?
Because obviously the system's quite intense, even though we don't have much information. We've got the Martyr, we've got the Mages, and then we've got the Wells. And as I was reading about all of this and the fact that the way the Wells had been drained, I was like, that's like yourself at times when you're living your life and everything gets a little bit too hard, you're so drained. And I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
and there's a very deep history too in Ireland. I'm sure you know, and a lot of your listeners probably know too, just around the sectarian tensions that have happened
Mm,
there over not just recent history, but through the centuries, right? And a lot of
that's right.
religious division as well, a lot of tension around what you are and are not allowed to worship and to hold close. And there's a very long history of wells being a special place in Ireland, where they are deeply tied to folklore. They are deeply tied to community gathering and coming together and all of that. And I felt like that was a really rich analogy to try and draw here as the source of the magic for this particular world.
Yeah, it was beautifully done. I absolutely loved it. There's a very clear class divide also in this book, which you notice. And it's so interesting when it comes to the magic, because obviously the people that are in charge, either your king and your nobles, are just like, nope, no magic at all. He's not happy. Was this something that you really wanted to convey in the book? As much, because I loved it, but the
Yeah,
clear
thank you
class
so
divide between
much.
them.
Yeah, very much. And again, I think I'm drawing a lot from the histories around kind of sectarian tensions and those divisions that you do have so deeply and that have been so impactful in Ireland. I think that there's also the sense that when you have again, it's a very strict, or not strict, but very sharp divide, I should say, between the
Mm,
classes, the nobles and the peasants, the commoners in this world. And I think that when you have something that you have someone in power has seen can be used against them, they don't want that around anymore, right?
no.
And they're going to do whatever they can to try and secure their own hold on power, to try and shore up whatever grasp they have on their own comfort and their own, control over their world. And banning magic in this world was really a natural response, I always thought, to an uprising, to a rebellion that had scared the ever loving crap out of them the first time it
Yeah.
happened. And so they're immediately like, you know what, we're just going to do away with the whole thing, get this off of our isle. And that's where they go from there.
Yeah, because even the punishments are different. I understand that we don't really find any of this out until later in the book, but the first sentence of the book, I was like, whoa. Okay, that went right in there because it describes
Oh yeah.
the punishment of a peasant for doing the wrong
Hmm.
thing. And I was like, damn.
You
Okay.
know right off the bat what the stakes of the world are. And I always say, when I'm talking about the book to people, I'm always like, it's very dark. It is
It is
romantasy,
dark.
absolutely. It's fantasy. It is very dark. It is not. It's grappling with a lot in addition to being a really fun and just exciting read. And
Yeah.
I felt really strongly that when I first heard Maeve's voice, it's funny, that line came to me in the shower. I was just thinking about her, and I'd been listening to music that had inspired her voice, and I just heard that moment and her kind of going about her day, and she says it so casually,
She,
and
so
it's so
casually.
casual because it's so normalized to her. She is so desensitized in this world to this cruelty and this violence, and the only way that she has learned to survive is to keep her head down, to try and stay out of trouble, to not draw attention to herself or be seen to catch the eye of anyone who might punish her or punish people like her and her family. And
Yeah.
that, as the starting point, I felt was a really important place to anchor the reader in, where off the bat there are stakes here and they're only going to get higher.
And they're only going to get higher. That's right. And that Maeve she was I felt she was a very intelligent 19-year-old. I was like, she's so different from what you usually get in a 19-year-old in fantasy and romantasy, where and I loved this about her, where she just questioned everything, but she did it
Hmm.
within herself,
Hmm.
not asking everyone, not trying to figure out whose side she was on or listening to everyone's opinions. All of that thought process was internalized, and she was still the same person that she was from the start of the book all the way through, which I just found so utterly refreshing for because I'm in my 40s, for a 19-year-old main female character to have the depth to understand that she needs to figure this out for herself, which was just phenomenal.
Thank you so much. The cards on the table, I didn't originally write her to be 19, which is probably why this is part of, I've been hearing this a lot from readers, that she is older, she is more mature, she is very intelligent and intuitive. When I originally wrote her, I had written her as, I think she was 23, 22, 21, early 20s, not that much older, but she was in her 20s. And the characters were all aged up by a couple of years, like within kind of 3 to 5 years of an age difference between what I had done originally and what we have now. And when we sold it both to adults and also to Simon and Schuster, the young adult imprint with Sarah Barley Books, who is my American editor, who is absolutely lovely. And I thought I think it's really cool that they were willing to take on a book that was an older character into a YA imprint. They were willing to push the boundaries a bit as well of what in the States can be and what you can include in that.
Yeah.
People right now, and teens in particular, they're living in such a dark world that they're not insulated from all of the darkness and the terrible things that are happening. They're living it every day. And the
Yep.
more that you can have books and media and movies and whatever that is going to show them how to grapple with that and how to move through this dark world, then I think that the better off everyone's going to be.
Yeah, I absolutely loved her. And in saying that, though, I liked the fact that because it is a fantasy and because this world is so raw and so gritty, I sometimes feel that our female characters, even if they are 19, should just be a little bit more mature than what they are, if that makes sense. Only because they live in a world where they know the repercussions are life and death. They're fighting against tyranny, they're fighting against oppression, and we're talking in a time period, as you said, where it's more medieval, that everything's a lot harsher. So for me, I was reading this book and I'm like, I love her. I love her. She's amazing.
Thank you. And again, like I'm writing it too as a 35-year-old woman. I'll be 36 when the book comes out. And I think it wouldn't be realistic for me to write a character when, especially in such a close first person POV, who didn't feel like in some aspects, a fit or a reflection of kind of how I am thinking about the world or processing the world, or just, I think that there's so much that comes out from your kind of natural voice when you're writing in first person POV, especially POV that's as close as this one with Maeve.
Yeah.
And that's just a natural reflection of, I think, the fact that I'm not 18, I'm not 19 though, I'm older, and I am reflecting with a whole 15 years of a very intense career behind me, that this is my attempt to reckon with a lot of those things that I've been thinking about for all that time.
Yeah. I loved her. She's one of my favorite FMCs now. Like I
Yay!
thoroughly
Oh,
loved
thank
her
you.
character. Thoroughly loved her character. She was fantastic. We also get to meet in the first chapter, because this first chapter was just jam-packed, Wolf.
Yes.
What is the inspiration with him?
Do you mean visual inspiration or character inspiration? Like
Well,
what kind
yeah,
of...
the visual inspiration, because I was like, oh, green eyes. I like the green
Mhm.
eyes.
It's a little bit different. Yeah. You know what? I have green eyes myself. I always have thought that's kind of cool. You don't often see that. And it felt like a kind of just a fun way to drop a little play on, again, Irish folklore and heritage there. Green, of course, is very
Yeah.
associated with Ireland. Green is the color as well, that he is part of kind of his family. How do I say this without spoilers? It's very closely
I
tied to
tried
who his
very hard
family is
not
and
to
where he
have
comes
many
from.
spoilers in this.
Right? I know, I'm trying to be so good. And so green, again, green is an important color in the books, and it just felt like a really good way to kind of get that in off the bat, and also have him be a little bit different and distinct than what you have come to expect.
Colors are quite big in this book, I've found. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got the red and black for the king and everything. And I was like, the colors mash well with the noble house that they represent, or the time period for what it is, or what the house itself represents. So basically, for the king, everything is just black and red. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole entire thing's very dark and very bloody at times.
You
So,
open the book on the black key, and there's
yes.
blood everywhere in the first chapter, right? That this is what that crown in the book symbolizes. It is darkness. It is this black key. It is the blood that's been spilt trying to fight for what is right. And that's, I think, a really visual clue to readers of what they represent.
That was why I quite loved the green on Wolf. And mind you, I'm reading this going, do we trust him? Do we not trust him? I don't know about this. He threw me for six. I'm like, oh, that's got to be like the love interest maybe. And then you get to know his character and you get to meet him when she goes to make that bargain. And I was like, I don't know if I like you.
You're still kind of on your toes about it, right? You don't
Yeah.
quite know.
I was very on my toes about him.
I love that too as a reader, honestly. I don't tend to gravitate towards books where there's like an insta love type dynamic with the characters. No shade to people who do, but that's just not my taste. That's not for me. And it wouldn't have been I think a natural thing for me to write. I really love that kind of the slow burn, the build up, the will they, won't they, the kind of can they overcome even like all the differences between them, right? And actually, this is very much the enemies to allies to, flame emoji, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens next, but it's meant to keep you very much on your toes for sure.
Yeah, I was with him very much on my toes, because most of the way through the book, you can tell that she's like, I think I would like him, but I actually don't know if I do. Every time he opens his mouth, she looks at him and goes, I could like him. And then he opens his mouth and she's like, yeah, actually, you know what? No, I couldn't.
Yeah. You're like, oh, shit. Like, what? Just come on.
And the yearning from both of them on their parts
Hmm.
through this whole book, I thought was done fabulous. Because yes,
Yes,
as we were
thank
saying,
you.
you're getting this whole. I think no, yes, I
Hmm.
do. No, I don't like you. No, yes. Yeah, it was written fabulously. But talking about all the characters, you've written so many beautiful characters. My favorite
Thank
is Talon.
you. Oh my
I
gosh,
love
yes, I
them.
love them so much. I love Talon, and I have honestly been so thrilled with the reaction too from early readers to this. I know it's so funny.
Yes.
Talon had come into my head just completely fully formed, and I have just it's been so wonderful to have an editorial team who loves them as much
Mm.
as I do and who's constantly looking for ways like how can we just show people more about who they are. And I think that they have so much richness and depth and such heart
Yes.
as well. And I'm so excited. I'm excited that readers are loving them, and I can't wait to see where they go next.
They are one of my favorite characters. Absolutely. So when I was reading, I did notes through.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so I've
I love
literally
it. I love it.
I've got a tab
Take
with
notes.
the actual.
Fantastic.
I got a tab with the actual. You know what? I probably should send them to you just so you can see.
Yes. You know what?
um,
I have such intense guilt about marking up a book. I dog ear them all the time, but I've never been able to overcome the kind of psychological barrier of don't write in the book. It's drilled in from school. Don't
yes.
write in the textbook. Don't doodle. But I can't do it now. But I love that.
So well, I'm like I've literally just opened the notes. So where is it? Because as I was reading, I was like, I love them. You get a sense at first where when you meet Talon, I was like, whoa, that's that's interesting. It was one of the parts where I was like, I
Hmm.
don't know if I like Wolf. It's a bit harsh. But so I kept reading. Oh, yeah, here it is. I really do hope that they become friends because I really loved their character. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
it'd be so good if she had even like a little bit of an ally in there.
Absolutely.
So when their friendship started to develop, I was like, oh, that's so
It gets me in the
beautiful.
feels too. I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was taking notes all the way through, like trying to guess what was happening
I
throughout.
love it. I love it.
And this is something that I found quite interesting as well, is you
Mm.
couldn't actually guess the overall, I'm going to say overall villain throughout the
Ooh, I
book
love that.
because there are a few main players in this when you're talking about the
Hmm.
overarching corruption within the kingdom and everything. So I was reading through it and I was like, wow, this was done fabulously because at first it's all targeted on the king.
Hmm.
And then you
Hmm.
meet the king. Again, my notes on this are like, without giving away spoilers. I wonder if this. But you meet the king and you're like, yeah, okay, he's bad, but hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Something's not quite right
Hmm.
here. And then you start meeting
Hmm.
everybody else and you're like, oh, I don't know who's actually out to get control of everything that's happening. So I thought that was done brilliantly. The main players in the book, are they coming back in the next ones?
I think that the ones who are left standing at the end of the
Yeah.
book come back, and we
Yeah.
will absolutely see more of everyone who is left standing at the end of book one into book two and book three. Obviously, it's a three-book series, so there will be different amounts of page time for all of them. But I think one of the things that is the most interesting to me, having written book two already and having the series kind of planned out, has really been like both the idea of who is pulling the strings behind power, right? When you
Yes.
have that person that you see who is the emblematic individual of what is wrong or evil or what have you, there are always people around them who are enabling, who are jockeying for power, for influence, for position. And I really wanted this world to reflect that as well. It's not a simplistic one individual that you tackle and things are solved. This is a very complex kind of political root issue. And also the question of what do you do when the people that you think that you can trust might not actually have your best interest at heart?
Don't even
What do
go
you
there with
do?
it. I got there. I got
What do
towards
you
the end
do?
of that book. That's one of my last questions down the bottom here because I was like, the twists and turns in this book.
Hmm.
I spent the last, I reckon, 3 or 4 chapters going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I got to, yes, this scene where I was like, no.
I love
Like,
that. That makes me
kind of,
so happy. I'm like my
I
little kind
was,
of
I
evil author. Like,
at the start of the book, I was like, look, this could be good, but you better be careful, Maeve, on who you're
mm-hmm.
trusting in there, because obviously when Maeve enters the trials as the peasant that's allowed to try and compete, she's got no alliances in there. There's no one really looking out for her. And I was like, just be careful who you trust, be careful who you trust. And then the book continues on, and I was like, oh, I think this is a good thing. I think this is good. And then I got to the end and I went, oh, you've got to be kidding. And
That
I
makes me
just,
so happy to hear. I love
I,
it. I love it.
I sat there for a little bit and went, man,
Yes.
because I was just so invested in this that I got blindsided. Absolutely blindsided.
Ooh,
Just like Maeve.
love that. Okay, amazing.
Yeah, I was a little bit
I
blindsided.
want to ask about which, but I also don't want to give spoilers for people who are like
You can
listening in. But
ask
I'm
me
so
after I
curious.
stop recording.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, after we stop recording, I want to know.
Okay, so Maeve comes to some conclusions on her own throughout this book about the state of her kingdom and how she's living and the lies that she's been told, not just by the king and the kingdom, but also by the people around her and some of the ones that she's trusted. This then led her to embrace the fight. Well, the fight that she was kind of forced into. She kind of went, well, I'm here now. Better fight for this because it's the right thing to do. Is this something that you wanted Maeve to experience? Because she goes through a lot of trauma throughout this whole
Mm-hmm.
the bride trials, but she
Mm-hmm.
also goes through a lot of depth and development when she's realizing all these things and coming to these conclusions. And she's looking at not just everyone around her, but within her own family.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot here too. And again, like I really wrote this book at a time where I was grappling with a lot of kind of big questions around what was happening in our world. I was
Mm,
revising it and editing it as well. There was a lot going on in the world. Again, I'm a journalist by day job. I've been a journalist for 15 years. And so we're working really closely with all these stories that come to people's headlines in the
mm,
newspapers and websites every day. I think it would be impossible to work with a lot of those stories and not have things that you're reflecting about, to have there be things that trouble you as well that you really are struggling with at the end of the day. And the book very much was an avenue for me to work through some of those big questions myself around accountability and power and sovereignty and all of that. And there just was so much, I think, that you, especially with what Maeve knows and what she's been told all her life, or what she thinks
yes.
that she knows, I should say, there are the lies that you're told that you know, or that people know are lies, but there's also the lies that you're told that you think are true, that the people that you love and who are close to you genuinely
Mm,
believe are true, right? And how do you go about starting to deconstruct that and starting to find your place outside of what you have always believed to be true? And I think it takes enormous courage to do that and to be able to say, I might have been raised with one belief, or I might have been raised with one way of looking at the world, but it's okay to question that. It's okay to say we can do better and we can be better, and to say I might not have had a role in how we got into this fight, and I might not have had a role in how the world is the way that it is, but I'm here right now and there's no point bemoaning that. I want to do what I'm able to do right now.
that's one of the things I also love about her is she went, well, I'm here. I've saved my sister. I'm here. This is what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted. So now I just have to suck it up. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you kind of do in a time period where you don't have much choice and women don't have much choice
Yeah.
anyway. She just went, I've got to get this done. I have to figure out a way. It was so refreshing to see a character go, okay, I don't want to be here, but I am here and I have to deal with that. And I was like, yes. And
I
then
think grit
obviously,
is such an important
mm,
characteristic too. Like, I put such a high value in myself. I was certainly raised with this as well. I'm very much like a kind of a product of the tough love 90s, right? Growing up, you kind of just had to buckle down and get stuff done, right? And
yep.
figure things out. Eldest daughter, all that, first granddaughter,
Oh,
everything.
me too.
You figure it out, right? And I think that there's a lot of that. Maeve isn't the eldest daughter, obviously, but there's that kind of mentality again from writing in her head and me being the author, that you just kind of have to, at a certain point, be like, you know what? I'm just going to figure it out. I'm just going to,
Yes.
yeah, it's okay to be frustrated by it. It's okay to be unhappy that you have to do these things, but it doesn't change the fact that you still have to do them. And
Yes.
how do you do that and try and cause the most good that you can, even in a shitty situation?
She ends up going through a bit of a dilemma. No spoilers. I'm going to try to get this out with no spoilers. Okay. But this, because for me, as I said, I love the character, I love the world, I loved the story. But reading this specific part where Maeve came up with an idea on how
Mhm.
to create a divide between the nobles. And I was reading this, and I must admit, halfway through it, I was like, oh my God, no, what is going to happen? Because, there's
Mhm.
a certain prince that I was like, oh, don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. But the result of that idea that she came up with
Mm.
and what happens afterwards, where she's standing there dealing with, oh my God, this didn't exactly go how I wanted it to go. And it's actually gone quite bad. And now I have to deal with this. Now, this
Mhm.
was my idea. This was what I put in place. And now these are the consequences of my action. And I was just like, oh. And she has a very an amazing line where she just says that she'll bear witness. And I was like, you know what?
Mhm.
Oh, that is just truly amazing. That's such a strong character to go, I've done this thing and it hasn't worked out how I wanted it to. It worked out in the end, kind of, but not exactly the way she wanted. And
Yeah, exactly.
her utter bravery and respect for this situation she had was just phenomenal. I was just like, that part actually from the whole entire book, that was the part that blew me away the most. I was like,
Oh, I'm so glad.
wow.
That's amazing to hear. There's so much in that scene in
That was
particular,
heavy.
I
That was
think
a
like
heavy
it's
scene.
heavy. It is. It's very heavy. And I always say people ask, how did being a journalist and working in journalism impact your writing? There's so many different ways I could answer that. But I think that particular scene is one part where you see that. And I put that on the page very deliberately because that
Mm,
is what you do as a journalist. We still live in a world where journalism is more important right now than ever. It
than
is so
ever.
critical. There are a lot of criticisms, and some of them are fair around journalism and journalists and where you strike that balance in coverage. And I think those are all important conversations. But I think that the most critical part of that and the thing that drives every good journalist really is this sense that I will bear witness, right? Even when there
Yeah,
are horrors that are going on, even when there are things that are happening that are not what you have been working for and hoping for or trying to support or create, that being able to be there, be on the ground and say, I will bear witness, even if this is painful, even if this is horrible to see. And that bearing witness, I think, is still so incredibly important, especially right now.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think that was why this part of the book was so moving for me is I was like, that is very poignant for the time that we live in, but
Mhm.
also for Maeve's character development throughout the book. And I felt like for me, I was reading this going, it's one of those parts in the book where you know that when everyone reads it, they're going to be like, this. It's going to be that
Oh, I hope
that's
so. I hope so.
I would say so because it's going to be one of those sayings where we have sayings from books where everyone, you say that saying and you know what book
Yeah,
they're talking about. I read that part now and she said, I will bear witness. And I was like, whoa,
I love that. Oh
that's,
my gosh. I hope so.
I
I hope
hope so too,
so.
because this, as I said, the book was amazing and just parts of it, you were just so engrossed in this story and its development and these characters. It was just, yeah, as I said, that bit was like, holy hell.
Oh, thank you so much.
But in speaking of that scene, one of the
Mm.
main players in that is Cash, our prince.
Mhm.
Now, we do
Mhm.
meet him earlier in the book. He was also another one. I was like,
Oh, yes.
I
I like
don't
to keep
know
you on your
about you.
toes. Yes.
He absolutely does.
Mhm.
I was reading, and when she first enters the ballroom in that first challenge,
Mhm.
and it's got this very distinct smell, and she's like, "What's that smell?" And then
Yeah.
she realizes what it is, and she sees them, and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna be nuts!"
Mhm. And you're like, it could either be like really good or really
Really
bad.
bad.
I don't know yet. Like what?
I'm like, he's either going to fall
Yeah.
madly in love with her or, oh my God, sleep with a weapon because he's coming for you. And I'm still a little unsure of him. Just a little.
Good. Readers should be unsure about every character in this series. And again, like when we sold this, I had mapped the entire thing out. The whole series is plotted through the end of book 3. Book 2 is written. I really wanted to make sure it was written before book 1 even came out because I was going back through edits to see things more clearly into book 1, for example, that are going to come through in the other books because I knew what was going to happen. And so there's a lot that's been very deliberately layered. And I think that readers should absolutely be looking at every character in this book, in this series, and wondering, like, what do you really want? Can I actually trust you?
And that's what I did with him throughout the whole thing. So, as I said, I read those scenes with Cash. And at first, I was like, oh, you know what? I feel for him. When you meet him in the garden, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's being misjudged. And then she enters the ballroom that first time, and I'm like, nope, nope, not misjudged. Oh, no. And then you get to know him a little better. And I was like, oh, maybe he is misjudged. And then, as I said, the scene we were just discussing before, he was a major part of it. And I was like,
Mm.
maybe he's not, maybe I haven't misjudged him. Maybe he is crazy. Oh, no.
I think all of the best characters, like to me, are always people who have both secrets and shadows, right? And even the character with the best intentions can still have shadows and can still have secrets. And I really try and approach every single character in the book like from that. And I'm always thinking of like, what is their secret? What is their shadow? And when I'm writing them together, like I love dialogue. I love it so much. It's my favorite thing to write. And I'm always thinking like, how can I play those elements, those secrets and those shadows off of each other with the characters and how can they interact? And he is one of the characters who challenges me the most, even though I know all of his secrets and all of his shadows. And he still is perpetually difficult for me to figure out how he's going to react in any particular moment or any particular kind of pressure point that you put on him. There's elements of that for all characters. I never know exactly how they're all going to react when I put them in a situation. It's like running rats in a maze a little bit. You're seeing where they go and what they do. But he is a particularly challenging one in terms of how he approaches people and how you're going to see him react to things.
He's an enigma, that one, reading his character throughout
Mm-hmm.
the whole book. And obviously, you find out some things about because there's an animosity between him and Wolf. And when you
Mm-hmm.
start finding out these things, as I said, I went back and forth with him. I was like, I think you're hard done by. No, you're not. You're not hard done by. And then we get to this stage where there's a bit of a confrontation. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to forgive you for what you did. But he's just such an enigma because you're right. You don't know what to expect from him and where he's going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's so many scenes. And look, he played his part brilliantly towards the end of the book. I was like, that was very well done. But at times I was like, oh, and then at the end of the book, him still being there, I was like, I'm not sure about this. I'm really not
Mm-hmm.
sure. He was a character that I went back and forth on a lot more than any of the other characters because I feel some characters, Fang, for example, that you know their
Mm-hmm.
intent and that they will stop at nothing to do what needs to be done. Where with him,
Mm-hmm.
you were like, it sounds really bad, but I feel like he's the snake in the grass. At times I was like,
Ooh, it's an interesting analogy there. Yeah. Yeah, I think he is perpetually fascinating and tricky to
he's very
me to write
cunning.
because he's very cunning. And again, you look at the tests in the essay and in the deadly trials here, you have cunning, wisdom, and strength. And these are all the characteristics that this royal house, this crown, believes are most important for being able to rule, and that these are the most kind of prized qualities that they're seeking in the people who might be their next queen. And I think that you see elements of those kind of throughout
Mm,
the book and all of the growth and the character development. And I think all the characters are weighted differently too in how they
yes.
have those. And he is absolutely cunning. And he also, I think, has a really, I think, legitimate and deep backstory. There are a lot of parts of Cash that I really
I was about to say, what can
um
we expect from him in the next book?
yeah, I think we learn more about him. We learn more about the relationship with him and Wolf as well. We see the way that he will react to being out of his comfort zone as well. I think it's safe to
Oh,
say that's not
yes.
too much of a spoiler because we know where the book ends at the end of book one and where they're going, what their hopes are. And so I think seeing all of the characters out of their comfort zones a little bit and how they react to that is going to be very interesting. It was very fun for me to write.
Yeah, because obviously at the end he's with everyone else, and I was a little bit surprised at that. But at the same time, I was like, okay, he's just done this for Maeve. The end of this book, the last 5 or so chapters, is just so completely full on that I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down. And then
I
you
love
got
hearing that. I
into
love hearing that.
I couldn't put it down. And then you got into this part where Maeve is very much, I'm going to say, challenged. It's not the right word, but that's the only way I'm going to be able to describe
I
it
think it's fair. Yeah.
without giving away too much. And obviously Cash ends up being there with Wolf, and I was just like, okay, you've done the right thing here. Not
Hmm.
sure I still trust you though.
You only have to look at a newspaper, look at the headlines, and there are a lot of people who do the right things for a lot of different reasons. And not all those reasons are straightforward or necessarily always 100% selfless. And so I think that is very much, again, every character in this world, I think, is very much morally gray. And that was really important to
Yes.
me to write. I loved watching Game of Thrones when it was coming out because it really kept you on your toes. It really was, I think, so good at making sure that every single character had, again, flaws and issues and darkness in them. And I think we're so complicated. And I love that in fantasy. It is, I think, just endlessly fascinating to see the way that even the smallest players sometimes can have a really important effect on how things turn out. And
That's
people that you might think that you don't know at all. And so that I think is really fun to play with and was something that I really wanted to, coming at it. I'm not classically trained with creative writing. I've never had any creative writing training, but I think just coming at that from a journalism perspective, like you're always thinking about character and motivation and what you can get at by what people say and how they act, right? What can you read between the lines?
mm. And I think that that's one of the things that shows. So that's actually one of my next questions. It was like all of
Oh,
the
perfect.
characters, all of the characters have their own flaws, and they also have
Mm,
their own moral compass, I suppose. So what
yes.
one will do to further along the cause, another one may not. And at the same time, what that person will do, someone else may not. And you see that in the depth of these characters, that they're all willing to do the dirty work to kind of
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
it done. And you can see, because most of this is from, obviously, all of this is from Maeve's head, you see how she grapples with basically the understanding of what's right and wrong. And I suppose what's okay to do to get the outcome that you need, even if that outcome is what is best for everybody. You see her
Yes.
really grapple with, okay, this is what happened when I first arrived at the castle, and then this is what's been going on all the way through. Am I okay with this? And at certain times, she's not okay. But then at other times, when she has her brilliant idea, she's completely okay until that goes completely awry. And then she's like,
Hmm.
now I'm not okay again. And I think that this was something that was prevalent for all the characters throughout the book. You get it from Wolf, you get it from Finn, her sister.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, and am I saying this correctly? Is it Kiva?
It is. Yeah. Kiva.
You even get it with her because she knows that what she's been doing and the way
Hmm.
everything in this story connects, and then Maeve puts it together was brilliant. But they've all got this, I suppose, right from wrong that they can see, and they don't always
Yeah.
align. And I think that was
Yes.
brilliantly conveyed because
I
we
think
are like
everyone
that as people.
has, exactly.
Mm.
Everyone has, I think, their own internal moral compass, right? And
Yes.
you think of Dungeons and Dragons. I have played that a lot with friends and my husband and everything, and we've had a league going for or a team going there for years on that one. And I always love the idea that you have the kind of like chaotic good and neutral good and all these different kind of
Mm.
explications of how characters interpret the world around them. And I think it's always the most fun when you have, and also the most just fascinating, frankly, when you have characters who they're not only motivated by what is right or wrong on paper, there's also what is right or wrong to you and in
To
your
you.
understanding of the world, right? And what one person might say is going to be very different from what someone else in a very different situation would say as well. And
Yep.
that I think is just really fun to play off of, especially in a story where politics is as interwoven as this is.
Yeah, and that, as I said, it was so brilliant to read characters that had, and then every character. I know that we get a lot of books where there's this one central, a central group of people that are in the right, or oh, these are
Mm-hmm.
the our moral compass. Basically, everyone has to
Yes.
follow them. In the Lure of Wolves and Whispers, it's not like that. They're so
Yeah.
very. They're
Yeah.
all fighting for the one cause, and they're all fighting to make everything better, to make everyone equal, or at least survive, because they're struggling at the moment. And they've all got their own moral compass, which is so
Mm-hmm.
different. And they're all not innocent, I suppose.
Yes. They all really do have blood on their hands in different ways.
Yes.
Every character in the book has some element of blood on their hands by the end of it. And I think that again, like they, even the characters in this, in the world who are fighting for what we ourselves would think is good and right, they have ways of doing that that are not clean or simple, right? I think
Mm.
that's actually a really, I think it's too simplistic when I read books and there, like you're saying, there is kind of this one sort of band of heroes who are always good,
Yes.
who are always making the least harmful decision when they're trying to cause good. And you can try and cause good and still cause a lot of harm while you're doing that. That happens actually quite often in the
Yeah.
real world. And that's not a good thing. That's just, I think, the way that unfortunately humans are, right? Humans are motivated by more than just what is good. They're wanting to protect their own place in a slowly, gradually improving world. They're wanting to burn things down. They don't care what the consequences are to
Mm.
get to more of a kind of idealized end goal. There's so many different ways of getting to these hopes and these aspirations. And there's such a huge spectrum in, I think, what people will justify and can justify as good to get to that end that they think is justified.
And that was a lot of what happened within the book. Maeve was
Mm-hmm.
justifying, and everyone else actually was justifying their actions and saying
Yeah.
basically it was like, it's a means to an end. It's a means to an
Yeah.
end. And she at first was sitting there going, yeah, I'm not overly okay with this. And then you see that development with her go, there's going to be sacrifices, and there's
Yeah.
absolutely nothing I can do about this.
I would challenge readers too who are reading it to actually to think about the kind of the tagline, the slugline for the book. It is very deliberately, what would you sacrifice to
What would you
survive? I would really
sacrifice?
challenge readers to think about that in the context of our world. And if somebody comes for your rights, if somebody comes for your sovereignty, for your country's independence, like what would you do to do what is right? And I think that there's a lot of really interesting questions around what people would, and scary at times questions too.
Yes,
It's a huge range with what people will justify and what they can live with and what you can sleep with at the end of the day. And how do you choose the best option, or the option that you can live with? And if you do the things that you can't live
that's
with, what
it.
happens when you have to face them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, as I said, the book had so many layers throughout the whole entire thing that I was just blown away with how interwoven the story and the amount of depth in not just the story and the world build, but the characters themselves, and how it all connected was just done phenomenally. You really did write a
Thank you so
fantastic debut
much.
novel.
Thank you. That's amazing
in
to hear.
in saying that, and I know you're probably not going to give us much, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
You can ask. Yeah, absolutely. You can ask. I might not be able to say everything. Go
And you're like,
ahead.
yeah, no, sorry. With all the twists and turns throughout this fabulous book, I never knew, as I said to you, I never knew what was coming next. I have notes and some of the things I was right about, but as I said, I got towards the end of the book and I was like, well, okay. What can we expect from the next book?
Ooh. So without giving anything away, I think that where it picks, or where book one ends, book two picks up very quickly afterwards. We're
Ooh.
starting almost immediately afterwards, and that's very deliberately done because of what happens at the end of
Yeah.
book one. There are a lot of, I think, big kind of questions and some core questions that book two is going to grapple with. Among them, we talked about this a little bit earlier, of what do you do when the people that you have put your faith in prove that perhaps they are not up to that faith and they are not up to that hope that you've put in them. And also the question of, when you have given everything, when you have sacrificed everything for a goal,
Yeah.
what do you do when that didn't work out the way that you want, when you have lost everything? How do you keep going through when it feels like your entire world has fallen apart? And how do you find that hope and that fire to keep burning?
And that's what I was worried about. I finished the book and I was like, oh, because you watch through the book, Maeve develops this hope. She went in at the start of the book with no hope. She was like, this is the
Mm-hmm.
way it
Mm-hmm.
is. There's not much we
Yeah.
can really do about it. I have to survive.
Mm-hmm.
My sister and I have to survive. And then she starts making these choices and these decisions for one, for survival, but two, you see that hope kindling in her. And then at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
book, I was like, it was kind of, all of it was not for nothing, but well, damn. Okay. You ended
What
on like,
now?
yeah,
Right?
I was like, what now? Because she got this hope, and I was like, is it going to be
Mm-hmm.
gone? How is she going to deal with the ramifications of everything that has just happened and
Mm-hmm.
come out the other side going, okay, no, I still want to fight? Because I was sitting there going, if it was me, yeah, no, I'm done. I've given everything I can, literally everything I can. What more do you want from me? So I was
Mm-hmm.
very much where it stopped. I was like, what? How can you finish there?
And I would tell readers, don't worry, but again, book two is written. We are well into edits on book two right now. I don't have a release date for it yet, but it is, I really had wanted to work hard to make sure that I would be able to tell people like when book one came out, don't worry, this is not like a years long wait between things. It is into the second or third, like the second or third draft, I think right now. It's moving well along and we're really happy with where it's at. And so I think that it's gonna hopefully be something that will really challenge readers and people when they ask what to expect. Like I would say pain, but
I
also
was going to say
I think
heartbreak.
pain, but also I think hope. That's going to always be, I think, a theme through the books. Like, I'm going to take people to some really dark places. Like we live in a really dark world, and I think there's
Yep.
no way to write a realistic, gritty fantasy that is such a reflection on power and abuse of power as the Lure of Wolves and
Mm.
Whispers is, and not deal with that. But you also really have to have that streak of hope through
Mm.
all of it that makes you believe that there is a world that's still worth fighting for. Even now, even in the real world, there is so much beauty and hope and inspiration, I think, every day in the world and what people are doing and how they're finding courage to try and make their communities better and their lives better. It's more real to have that be something that is going to keep people going. You have to have hope. You always have to have hope.
Have to have hope. As from a reader perspective, it's fabulous that the book two is finished and it's going through edits. Because yes, we do. We get to the end of a book like this and go, I need the next one
Yes,
now.
yeah.
And then you've got, oh yes, it's going to be a year, and then no wait, it's going to be 18 months, and you're like, oh come on, I just need to know. So fabulous that.
Yes, I do have a like a post up too from when I finish and edit on book two, and I've been keeping little stories and notes on my Instagram of the music I've been listening to as I've been writing it. And I think people will find a lot of kind of clues and hints about where the book is going and what some of the emotional themes and the resonance is there in book two if they're going through some of those the saved stories and the posts that I have about working on it. I'm very inspired by music, and I think that there's people will find some hope and some perhaps clues in there.
So heading into your page now to do a deep dive, just so I can go, okay, I think I've got this. It's all going to be okay, and then watch as you just rip my heart out of my chest. Thank
Probably
you
gonna
so
happen.
much.
Probably gonna happen.
Thank you so much for having a chat with me. No, don't. No, they're going to be happy. Everything's going to be good.
It's gonna hurt and you're gonna be happy. You're gonna have fun.
Yeah, you're going to suffer, but you're going to be happy about it.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for having a chat with me. It has been brilliant to talk to you. The Lure of Wolves and Whispers comes out on the 7th of July. Everyone needs to go and grab a copy because it was absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. Absolutely loved
Thank
it.
you so much for having me. It was so much fun to chat with you.
Well, thank you for wanting to have a chat with me. It was amazing. All right, guys. So thanks for listening to Hardbacks and Hot Flashes. I'll be back next week with an all new, unhinged, bookish episode.